So this is what the scene is going to be when we are all finished, and what we can do is come in here and click on each one of these little points here and have the animations advanced. The next script we'll do could be considered what's almost like an interactive scene. We're going to use an event to trigger a director. So in this particular scene, we're going to use two things, a button, and when we click on that button, it's going to start an animation. So let's go into our built-ins, and we'll just start by using any two objects. I'll just use a sphere. I'm just going to throw a material on this. I'm going to move it to the left side, maybe scale it down. I'm also going to just use a rectangle here, and we want this rectangle to grow. So I'm going to set the axis center to left, the single scaling here, and we're just going to set a keyframe. So it's going to start at 0, and let's take it up to 5, and we'll hit set key. So now you can see we have an animation. Let's just move this over, and if I want to throw a material on it too, we can do that. We'll see it a little bit better. Now I'm going to group these two things, and I also just want to rename these so I don't have to keep typing these long names. I'm just going to call the sphere B1. I'm going to call this rectangle rec. Now I also need to go into the stage and rename my director. Two ways that we can do that: we can right click and hit rename, or you can come over here to the right and highlight it and rename it that way. So I'm just going to call it dir1. Now I need to go back and add the script function. So I'm going to go into my CP, the global, add the script to this topmost group. I'm going to click on the script function, and here it's in our editor, so now I can start typing. The first thing that I need to do is kind of identify my pieces here. So I'm going to go dim B1 as container, and dim dir1, which is my director name, as director. Now I can write another subroutine. So I'm going to come down into the events here. I'm going to say sub on init. And since my script is on this topmost group, I need to find my subcontainer B1, and I also need to tell it to find my director. So since we are using a sub init, once the scene opens, it needs to find the two elements that we're working with, which is B1 and the director. So B1 equals find subcontainer, which is the name B1. And we also need dir1 equals stage.find director, and the name of the director, which is dir1. That subroutine is done. So we're going to move on down to the next subroutine. So I'm going to come into my events here. This time we're going to use a sub on left button down. So what this will do is when we click the left mouse button down on our B1 container, I want it to start the director. So we just need to come in here and tell it which director to start. We'll say dir1.start animation. And when we compile and run this, we didn't get any errors, which is good. Now, since this is an interactive scene, we may need to turn your little E button on for it to work. So let's rewind this timeline, and we'll click on the button here, and we click it, and it does function. From here, what we can do is then copy these. So let's make two more copies, and I'll just move this one up, and we'll move this one to the bottom. So we need to make a couple adjustments here, because what's going to happen is when I hit this, they're all going to play together. So we need to go into the stage and break these out into individual directors. So I'm going to find this first animation. I'm going to make another director. We're going to call it dir2. We'll slide that down into it, and we'll make one more director. We'll call it dir3. And let's double check, make sure we have the right animation in the right director. So I'll put that one in 3, put this one in 2. We're going to close these up. We're done with that. And we're going to come in here to our buttons. Let's name this one B3 for button 3. Let's name this one B2. Now we need to come into each individual script and edit the names too. So this is B2. So I'm going to come through and find everywhere that says B1 and replace it with B2. And I need to do the same thing with my director. So each time that I see the dir1 name, I'm going to replace it with dir2. And we'll compile and run it. And then we'll do the same exact thing for this. So we need to change our button names and our director names. So as I come through and do this, depending how long your script is, it may take you longer or shorter, but you can always use this compile and run. If the naming convention is off, it will tell you where to look, and you can quickly find the name there. So let's compile it and run. It should be okay. Let's hit our directors here for all, and we'll rewind everything. Now we'll come down into the scene, and we'll hit the first one, it plays. We'll hit the second one, it plays, and we'll hit the third one, it plays. So we'll go back into edit, and just to point something out, how did I know what the door wants start animation? Again, if you come into your question mark here, it opens up the documentation, and you can come into the director here, and here it tells you the different parts for the director. So here it's a start animation, and it tells you that starts the animation in this director and its subdirectors. So this is one possible way to get you on your way to write an interactive scene.